it's Ted McGrath. So how do you sell online courses? And what I mean by that is I'm going to break down a framework and step-by-step how to sell. But I mean, how do you actually sell? Not the structure of a marketing system, which I'll share some tips at the end, but really, like, what does the presentation actually look like? And I'm going to share with you like the two biggest mistakes first that people make that you just don't want to do from a sales perspective, and this will really help you. And I've sold on different platforms, from stages to videos like this, to live streams, to one-on-one, to webinar presentations. So I've sold all different kinds of platforms, on many of those platforms, selling millions of dollars on them. And so those are just some of my stats, so you know that I'm credible in this area, okay? So first and foremost, the first mistake that people make when they're selling in online courses or just selling in general is they believe that when they transition into the sale, they think that it's a hard break and it's like, oh, the sale is coming. And a really great sale is not a hard transition into it. It's like one presentation from your content to your sale. And if you realize that your sale is actually educating people, and this is really important, hugely important, right? When you're selling, you're actually educating people. Let's say I've got 7 steps to a system, like my Message to Millions training has 7 steps. And let's say in a content presentation, I was gonna teach you, 2 of those steps, and I was gonna go deep into 2 of those steps. Let's say it was a 90-minute webinar or a live stream. Well, I've only covered 2 of the steps, and when I get into the final 5 steps, which is the time where I'm gonna sell to you, those final 5 steps, the customer doesn't actually know the blueprint and the steps to succeed in actually implementing the thing you're talking about. A lot of people think, particularly when you're selling coaching or consulting or any service-based business, if you're in financial stuff, real estate stuff, anybody who's kind of selling knowledge and information and your advice, this applies. And anybody who's not, this also applies, because when you get into the pitch, you're educating, right? So it's really important when you get to that point, you realize that you are educating the customer. And if I shared with you 2 steps, like let's say I talked to you about how to find your story and your message, and then I talked to you about how to package your product, program, and service. Well, when I get into the sale, I'm going to talk to you about, how do you build your sales system? How do you create your marketing system? How do you do your advertising? How do you build a sales team? I'm going to go into so much more stuff than I'm teaching you in the content. And I'm going to go step by step methodically of what you need to actually succeed in getting your products, programs, and services to millions of people and building a lifestyle-friendly business where you're really helping people. So that's what my pitch would be, right? And when I get to the final 5 steps, I'm educating, right? And the client or the customer who's watching the content presentation should know that, wow, there's more great information coming up. And so this is really important for you as you're actually teaching content. When you go into the sales presentation, you don't want it to feel like all of a sudden you change modes and you become a different person. I've always said, have a lot of fun teaching your content and have a lot of fun during the sale. I remember this one presentation where we were at an event, and it was a mastermind group, a higher end group of ours that I'd invested anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 to be in the room, and we were going to sell a high end package, like a much higher end package. And I went up to the room with my chiropractor, and I remember coming down and walking into the room, I'm like, fun, God damn it, we're gonna have fun. And I walked around that room, and when I was making the call to action, I was walking around talking to people, getting in communication with them, laughing, having fun, telling stories. And I was having just as much fun in the sale as I was in teaching the content. And, probably a little bit more fun during the sale, and that's okay, right? Because you're not changing personalities doing that. What's happening is you're raising the energy level, where most people, when they start getting into the investment on things, they put up a little ridge and they cross their hands. They're like, he's selling me right now. And so if you bring more energy, it kind of blows through that wall that they're putting up. So that's one of my tips right there is, make sure that you know that you're educating them when you get into the sale, and have fun with it. You should have a really good time making the offer. So that's one mistake, or two mistakes I should say, to avoid. One is, continue to educate and teach, and realize that the transition is no transition at all into the sale. If you were to build a bridge, here's what you would say, so it doesn't feel like there's a transition. You'd say something like, or it doesn't feel like there's a hard stop. You'd say something like, great, I really hope you enjoyed the first two steps that I taught you in the content today. And for those of you who are really looking to dive deep into this information and get more of it, this is just the beginning of your education, and I want you to continue your education with me, and I want you to continue your training with me. So I'm now going to share with you the final 5 steps of my system, where you've only gotten 2 so far, and I'm going to share the final 5 steps. So really pay attention, because these are the most important steps that can really create permanent change in your business, in your life, and whatever. And ultimately, as I'm going through these, if you feel inspired as I'm sharing these steps, that you're like, wow, I want to know more and get educated more and train more, then I'm going to make an offer for you to continue doing that and go on the journey and continue getting educated with me, continue coaching with me, and you can invest in one of my trainings if you feel called. But either way, whether you invest or not, this is what you need to know, so pay close attention and start learning through the rest of this presentation, or continue learning through the rest of the presentation. Boom, and I keep going. And so what that does is that bridge, it really, it puts people at ease, People want to be at ease, like, oh, okay, I don't have to buy. Even if they're on like a webinar, they're like, man, should I buy? Should I not? Nobody's even looking at them, right? In a room, it's way worse, man. When people start putting up their arms and stuff, and you just got to be able to have fun and enjoy the ride with people. So just know that transition, which really is kind of like no transition at all. It's just a continuation. And it's really just the sale is more education, okay? And then 2, keep your same personality. Maybe raise the energy a little bit with more fun, because people do put up a wall a little bit, okay? So those are just 2 mistakes that I would say, definitely avoid when you're selling, and have fun with it, You hear a lot from people, selling is service, selling is helping people. There's no question about that. I'll give you another tip on sales that I think is really important. This is kind of my philosophy. Know what's important to your customers. So, is it true I'm selling a product or a service when I get in front of the stage, when I pitch somebody? Is it true that when I'm online and I'm selling something, you should probably see my ads all the time, I'm always pitching something, right? So, is it true that that when I'm doing that, I'm selling a product or a service? Well, yes, that is true, right? There's a call to action, go buy this thing. So it's not that it's not true, but here's the thing that I think is more relevant, okay? And what's more relevant is this. What's more relevant is if you know what's most important to the client, and you can really get this when you're one-on-one with a customer. You can get this by doing surveys to your list. You can get this by studying and observing your clients for years and years and years, like 9 years like I have, and really know what some of their most important goals are as a group. Because if you're online and you're marketing online, it's hard to know that unless you've observed. If you're one-on-one, it's really easy to find out the client's most important goal. And so what you're doing, which is really cool, is if you know their most important goal, just sell them on their number 1 goal. Just sell them on their number 1 goal. And your product and your service is the key. It's like the vehicle that's going to drive them to their destination of their goal. Because here's the deal, I wasn't even going to get into this stuff, but I'm having fun, so why not? So here's the deal. Little sun here, nice. So do they even know much about your product, guys? No. Are we going to expect them to be experts in your product? No. Even when you go through the 7 steps, they're glazed over through half of it. So the only thing that really matters is what matters to them. And here's the great thing. It's like, what matters to you? Well, of course, you want to sell them into your program. That's how you build a business. That's how you make a living. That's how you make money. And of course, whatever space you chose it because you're passionate about helping people in doing that. If you're not, then obviously you're probably not happy with what you're doing, so you should find something else. But it's a given. If you pick something that you're passionate about, you really want to help people. Like one of the things I look at every week in my like thread is like our success stories. It's one of the first things I check. I just look and I'm like, oh my God, okay, we had another client success, another client success, another client success. It's really great to see that, right? Because you want to know that people are getting helped with what you're doing. So with that, it's a given that you're selling your product, your program, and your service, and that's what you're doing, and that it's going to help people. So if you assume that that's the case, and if it's not, you got to change something, right? Because not everybody's like that. But if it's not, you got to change something. But assuming that's the case, well, you should never be bashful of selling them on what's most important to them, which is their goal. You're selling them on what they want and desire. So what is the problem? Like, why do people back off in a sale? Why back off? You know, why do you need to back off? Why can't you push somebody on their goal? If they tell you they want it and it's their origination that this is what they want, is what's important to them, then you should drive them towards it. And you know, this is something we do, which I love the most. I relate this to selling in a seminar room. Why? Because it's my favorite. And it's my favorite because I get to see what's going on with the people, and it's more like a party and a show when we do it. But what we do is I make a pitch from the stage, and most of the people will fill out a questionnaire, and so before I take them through the sale, I'll have them go through like, what's your number one goal? What's the biggest challenge preventing you from getting there? Why is that important to you? So I'll have them go through a thinking process of what they want. Once they've gotten clarity on what they want, then my job is to sell them hard on it. And if you think that, you know, selling hard is like, you know, it's not being sleazy, it's not being sales tactic-y in terms of doing something that is unethical or doing something that's forcing people's will. There's nothing wrong with sales tactics, right? That get people to actually take action. Like a sales presentation is a tactic. It's a way to actually deliver something so somebody can receive it and make the best decision for themselves, right? So we're talking about like ethical sales tactics that you actually use. And so there's nothing wrong with actually selling. There's nothing wrong with actually, you know, driving somebody and making multiple calls to action for them to go buy something. And I think that's one of the biggest things that people need to understand when you're selling. And if you are backed off on it or you feel weird on it, people can feel it. So whatever you need to do to get out of that state of feeling weird about it, you need to do it and you need to have fun with it. So when I'm in a seminar room, we make it fun. Like I have envelopes, and so we make a high-end offer, and the offer might be something like, you know, it's a high-end offer, so whatever, it doesn't matter what the price point is. So when I make the offer, what I do is I have people stand up if they want it. And they have to stand up and they have to grab an envelope in front of their peers. Now you might go, why do you do that? One, it's fun, right? Two, I enjoy the tension. I enjoy the living out on the edge, the line of like, okay, is somebody gonna stand? Is they not gonna stand? What's gonna go on here? How would I respond and handle that situation under pressure? I like pressure situations. I thrive under them. I think the audience gets to stand up in front of their peers and go, I want that. And I think that's pretty dope. They get to take a stand and be acknowledged and recognized in front of hundreds of people. That's really dope. They get to stand for their dreams. And I've always said that sales is standing for somebody's dreams when they're not ready to stand for themselves yet. So I make them stand, right? And I'm standing for them so they can stand for their dreams, which I think is pretty badass, right? Because for me, there's nothing, it's just so critical to go live a dream. It just is. You gotta go live your dream and have fun. So know what's important, make multiple calls to action when you're selling, right? And that's what I mean by driving them, right? It's not like, hey, you know, if you want this, go. No, it's like, hey, first call to action, right? And there's a whole methodology behind this. We'll go into that another time. Hey, second call to action, right? Hey, third call to action. You know, sometimes I'll make 10, 11 calls to action in a room if I have to. And much of it is walking around and going, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? What are you thinking? And handing people's considerations in front of other people. And so when I handle one person's consideration in the room, the rest of the room, they blow those considerations. So yeah, there's a lot of skill in this, but the things I want you to take away from today is number one, summing it up. Okay, here it comes. Number one, right? So number one is this, go educate people on what it is you're doing. And what I mean by that is teach them a few things and let them know to continue their education. Basically, they're gonna invest with you, okay? But make sure you're educating them as you're taking them through the sale. The second thing is, make sure that when you are selling stuff, that you find out what's important to your customer, what's important to them. It's really easy to sell them on what's important to them, and know that if they want that, what's important to them, and you want to help them, and you want what you want, which is to grow your business, to make some money, to get some clients, and to help some people, then you two are in good agreement together, and you should drive it because you have the expertise and they need what you have, and you have a responsibility to drive it home, right? Number three, have fun. Have fun with it. When you're going into a sale, have a good time. Bring some energy, bring some joy. Know that the client will sometimes be a little bit like reserved, have walls up and stuff. So you just gotta have fun, you gotta have a good time. And so those are the main things that I would remember. Make multiple calls to action, right? It's not just one call to action. Make multiple calls to action when you're selling, okay? And why? Because the first call to action, the customer's like, is he talking to me? The second call to action, he's like, he might be talking to me. The third one, he's like, oh, he's talking to me. He's not talking to my father or my mother, who I'm looking behind me. Is my mom or my dad there when he's looking at me? He's talking to me. Great. So they know you're talking to them, because if you're not in communication with them and they know you're talking to them, guess what? They're going to be glazed over. And one of the ways you tell people that it's for them is tell them it's for them. Sometimes people think like they're sitting in a room, hey, I don't belong. So you got to address that as an objection or a consideration. Hey, this isn't for me, I don't belong, I'm too new, address that. And there's all those other considerations that you got to handle too, right? So any good presentation, you should go in, know the 5 to 7 objections of your customer, and handle those throughout the presentation by talking about it, not as you come to the sale, talk about it through the entire presentation. That way when you get to the sale, it's like butter, all right? Hope this helps. I could go on and on and on about this stuff, but hope this helps. And subscribe to the channel, or like, or comment, or do whatever you do. There's more videos coming, free stuff. Cool. All right. And of course, you'll see somewhere on our channel that we're giving away free gifts to capture your email and do all that stuff that marketers do. Cheers.